Howdy and welcome to the Cowboy Up podcast, brought to you by the legendary White Stallion Ranch in the shadow of the Tucson Mountains, along with Basecamp for veterans. In the West, Cowboy Up is more than a saying. It's a way of life defined by grit, hard work, and self-reliance. And that courage is the heart of the mission of Basecamp for veterans. This podcast is dedicated to honoring the Cowboy Up spirit. We are the only show bringing you true Western adventure and history while showcasing the profound healing that happens when our nation's heroes connect with the power of horses. Join Russell True, Deborah Plum, Theo Windish, and Stephen Clauson as we share tales from the range and powerful stories of resilience, all working towards one goal while helping everyone to cowboy up for the next chapter of their life. Good morning, Russell. How are you?
I'm really good. I just got back from Boston, got to see Stephen and Alice and Noah, and first time to get to see my sort of new granddaughter, Elsie.
Well, it's the sort of new granddaughter?
Well, she's 10 months old.
But she's new to you.
New to me. Not so new to the world.
How was Boston?
It was great. I can't say enough. We went there to meet him, but we snuck in lots of Freedom Trail and all the amazing history they've done there. But that's my new favorite Eastern city. It is absolutely terrific.
So it's your favorite city is not New York anymore, huh?
Well, I like San Antonio very much too, but that's a Western sort of city. But,
I'm not going to go Eastern city on
Boston is terrific.
Russell, today our guest is Mary Miller. I don't need to tell you who she is. I'm going to say a little bit about who she is and then ask her to complete the picture. She is the co-owner of Elkhorn Ranch, and she's like you. She is a preservationist, conservationist. She's a dude rancher. I'm just going to welcome her, and then we'll get a little bit more information from her. Mary, are you with us?
I am here. It's good to be here today.
Welcome. I appreciate you taking the time. I know, I know what the schedule of a dude rancher is like, and I know you're very busy right now. You're getting ready for the season, as is Russell. So your time is at a premium right now.
Well, this is a fun thing to do today.
Thank you. So tell people who you are and at least some of the stuff you do, because if you tell them everything you've done, well, it'll be the entire show.
Well, again, I'm Mary Miller, and I live and work at the Elkhorn Ranch. And we are a family-owned and operated guest ranch, dude ranch, about an hour southwest of Tucson. We're in the Baboquivari Mountains. If you've ever been to the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum in Tucson and you look at the amazing views heading to the south, we're down there. And we've been doing this here since 1945. I wasn't born then yet, but my husband's family got it started, and they got started in ranching in Montana in the 1920s, and then came down here, and this is where my husband grew up, and we've raised our family here, and now we're lucky to have them helping us run the ranch. So I'll just leave it at that for the moment, and we can go from there.
Well, that's quite a bit. You also do a lot with conservation, which I definitely want to talk about with Altar Valley, and I think you're even very active within the Arizona Dude Ranching Association.
Yeah, I seem to be one of those people who's not very good at saying no. But yes, since the mid 90s, together with our neighbors here, the area we live is called the Altar Valley. And it's about a 600,000 acre watershed area southwest of Tucson. And it's very fortunate that it's still very open. Quite a few cattle ranches in the valley, another guest ranch as well, Rancho de la Osa. And then we also have the Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge. So we're very fortunate to be doing what we do within this bigger context of ranching and open space. And I had a background in natural resource management. And so when I kind of arrived on the scene, it was just as all this work with the neighbors was really starting. And so I just fell right into it, and it's been, both a passion project, but also really a very important business aim for the ranch. A big part of what makes our place special is this open country, the big views, and the fact that the valley is mostly in ranching keeps that way. And so it's a big part of what makes Elkhorn a special place is where we are.
I'm going to add a little history because, I love the Elkhorn history. Ernie Miller, in fact, I think some folks in the family questioned it, but Linda, my good friend who grew up also on Elkhorn Ranch, ran Elkhorn North, confirmed what I'd researched. But Ernie Miller and his wife had bought a cabin from a disgruntled tourist, really, probably. A bear got in and tore his cabin up, and he was really upset. So Ernie gave him a few bucks, bought the cabin, and started dude ranching. And when they had somebody in the cabin, he and his wife would go sleep outside, and dude ranching started. That cabin, I'm told, is still there at Elkhorn North, or Elkhorn in Montana. It's one of the centennial ranches that was celebrated in the 100 Years of Dude Ranching book. And story, I guess, as I understand it, was Ernie, who was a hunter and a avid photographer, was down in the Altar Valley with Jim Converse, the interesting and controversial owner of Tanque Verde Ranch. And he said, "Man, this is such a beautiful place. I wish there was somewhere here to start a dude ranch." He said, "Go by Fresno Mountain." Is that the name?
Yeah.
And it was a boys' school that had closed due to World War II. And it was just sitting there with some infrastructure and a super location up in those mountains. And so Ernie did it. And Elkhorn South was born. The family decided to sort of, year-round business was tough, so they split. Half the family went north, half the family went south. But that's still, the cooperation was there because Linda ran Elkhorn North for years and years, and I think still goes up north in the summer, as any wise person might, and who has opportunity, and then spends the winter down here in Arizona. She's Charlie, your husband's sister. And I knew Linda really well on the DRA board for a long time, and specialized in torturing her, which was...
Well, the story gets even thicker with my family because my grandparents, who were from Michigan, came out to here in the 50s. And in 1956, they told my father, who was at that time a freshman in college at a prestigious Ivy League type school in the East, that he was going to go on spring break with them. And he wasn't too keen on that, but I guess he was young enough that they prevailed, and they hauled him out here for his spring break. And he had a wonderful time, and ended up asking my now father-in-law, Bob Miller, who's deceased, for a job. So he ended up going up to the Montana Elkhorn in the late 50s and worked up there as a novice barn person. I suspect he did a lot of manure shoveling, and gradually became a guide up there. And so, friendship with our families goes way back, and guest ranching, created all that. So, and then he ended up going to college in Montana. He left his school back east and finished college there, and eventually ended up back in Arizona, and so on and so forth. So I've kind of grown up with this place as part of my home in a way, and long before I ever moved here.
When you said he did a lot of manure shoveling, you're not inferring that he was in politics.
Oh, the antithesis thereof.
So, Mary, here's a little piece that you may or may not know. I didn't know. Your father-in-law, Bob, told me. He and my dad were fraternity brothers at Montana State University.
No
And
way. I've not heard that story.
and I believe, I don't know if you remember what year Bob was born, but my father was born 22, and long story, he had a direct appointment to Annapolis or West Point, turned them both down, and went to Montana State because he wanted to go home. That was his home. And then very shortly after he enrolled, World War II began for America with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. He enlisted in the Air Force and then returned and finished his college education at Montana State. But Bob told me they were 1 or 2 years apart, but in the same Sigma Chi fraternity at Montana State in Bozeman, Montana.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah. So
Very
Bob
cool.
told me. Bob and Jan, great
Yep.
dude ranchers, some of the finest people I've ever gotten to know. Well, talk to us about Altar Valley and because we're involved at Rancho Del Osa, we know a little bit. We've not been a driving force in any shape, way, or form like you have, or Sarah King, or all the folks down there who've really worked hard to
Yep.
get stuff, all the good things that are happening. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, if you can go back in time a little bit, the mid 90s, those were really challenging times with sort of rancher environmentalist conflict. They were not good bedfellows. They lots of concern about grazing. What I'm trying to think of, some of those cattle free by 93.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that
Lots
one.
of those sayings. And when I was in grad school, kind of in the early 90s, and I'd also worked for the Forest Service in more of a land management role. The idea of what they called it, ecosystem management, kind of looking across boundaries, really trying to get all of the different parties out there to be working together better was a really big push at that time. And things were very contentious. But as we got into the 90s, this started a little bit before I got to Tucson, but the Nature Conservancy had taken a lead role in trying to pull ranchers together to talk about how people could more view the world together rather than in a state of conflict. I believe the name of that effort was the Arizona Common Ground Roundtable. And I wasn't really part of that, but I kind of caught the tail end of it. But I do think that sort of set the stage for ranchers to get more visibly involved with conservation and to talk about it more. And so as we hit the mid 90s, there was a group called the Malpai Borderlands Group that got started with the support of the Nature Conservancy in southeast Arizona. You might have heard of the Glenn family, Warner Glenn, who also was a lion hunter and took magnificent photos of jaguar, one of which is actually on the wall behind me. So our folks here in the Altar Valley got wind of what was happening in southeast Arizona and invited some of those folks up here for a discussion. And so that was kind of the beginnings of these neighbors starting to work together. My husband Charlie and our neighbor John King had a conversation at one of the sales at Parsons cattle sale or Marana Stockyards, and then they promptly got their wife and then girlfriend involved with making it all happen, as is often the case. We tend to do the organizing, so it began, and it started off with the idea of trying to work together on fire management, trying to bring fire back into the ecosystem as a management tool to work with brush management. We also have had a lot of erosion in this valley, particularly in the drainage in the middle of the valley, which we call the Altar Wash. It used to be Saccatone grassland along that channel. It's doesn't have water in it much of the year, but for a long time it held more of a kind of the Saccatone grassland is a wet area. It's not really wetland per se, but it takes a lot more water, and all of that got lost through various forces of history and time and climate. So that was a big issue. And I think just generally people were getting a little weary of fighting and just trying to figure out a way to work together better, or if we were going to be squabbling, to at least have a more united voice. And so, 30 years later, we've now had, we've got a staff. I'm just on the board now. I used to be on the staff. I was the first executive director, but now I'm on the board and have really happily passed it along to younger people who are have more time and are just got the energy to be dealing with everybody. And but I still keep close track of it. It's still definitely a passion project, and we've had lots of grants to do a lot of conservation projects. But I think just the most important thing is that we keep bringing all the parties together to talk and know each other and try to work through things. Try to have all these crazy federal and state laws make some degree of sense here at the local level. So it's very satisfying, and we've created a very positive monster.
Years ago, Elder Hostel hired me, and I was not qualified to teach a class on public lands ranching then and now. And it was right then, 92, when Clinton was elected, and Babbitt was Interior Secretary, and there was cattle free by 93, and there was a lot of upset and anger. And I went to a seminar hosted by Tom Sheridan, who's involved in your deal, right? And certainly one of the 2 or 3 most prominent Arizona historians. And he had, and it was interesting, it was a big auditorium, and one half of the room, it had just gravitated to this sort of thing. There was half the room had cowboy hats on, or the type of baseball cap you'd expect at the feed store, and the other half was not that. And he looked out, and the room had sort of self-segregated, and clearly an environmentalist group and a rancher group. And she goes, he said, you people should really get along, because many of you are too stupid to know this, but you really want the same thing. And you really want to preserve the ranches and make them healthy and do good things and prevent what will be the result if the ranches leave. And if the ranchers leave, there's going to be all sorts of impact on access and wildlife, water, and all kinds of rangeland management that you think ranchers don't do, but they do. And so, it certainly resonated with me. I'm not sure it did with everybody. And he was very polite. He was politer than I said, but it was really a great, it was along the lines of what you were talking about, the common ground thing. And, it's interesting. I love irony, because I think life is got a lot of it. And Bruce Babbitt, who served 8 years as Interior Secretary under Clinton, I ran into one of his relatives. There's a few of them around Arizona. And he said, the day he ascended to governor, because he went in because of, he was Attorney General, and we'd lost a couple of governors. And so he went in as a governor. He says, this is the worst day for ranching in Arizona. ironic, because why is it ironic? Well, because the Babbitt family owns the second biggest ranch in Arizona and one of the 5 biggest ranches in America, the Babbitt Ranch in northern Arizona. Huge ranch. So I actually got to spend a day with Bruce Babbitt long after that, and despite all the reports I'd heard of him, I really kind of liked him, and I found him straightforward and reasonable, and so you never know what you're reading and hearing and what the reality is. Because I had a friend who didn't like him at all and worked for him, so it's interesting, but. He was considered at the time the most anti-public lands ranching interior secretary in the history of the U.S., and he came from public lands ranching. So you never know in life. Went off to Harvard.
This is true.
Got a new view. Now, tell us. I see in my notes. I didn't know this about you. You spent some time at Yale, not Harvard.
I did. Yep. So when I went to college in the Northeast at a place called Williams College, and that was a pretty big change for a kid raised in Arizona. I was raised in Flagstaff, and I really that they had a really fine program in environmental studies, and that became my wasn't really a major, but that was my home. That's what I did, and I learned a heck of a lot and had some unbelievable teachers. And I following that, I knew that was what I wanted to do, and ended up going to a master's program. It was called a Master's of Environmental Studies, and I really focused on Western land and resource management. People at that school there were a lot of international students. People were interested in everything from recycling to forestry to, you know, oh gosh, business, chemical, environmental, you name it, they did it. But I had a real strong hankering to get back to the West, and loved the outdoors. Had enough exposure to horses and ranching because of coming to Elkhorn, really, that I just had a real strong interest in all that. And I learned a heck of a lot. It was quite an education, and being with all those people from all over the place was a real privilege. And I went from there and worked with the Forest Service for a few years, which was also a real education. And I did really enjoy the management aspect of that. I'm definitely a person who likes to put things together and have things work. I'm not big on conflict, so I like to try to have people and organizations be able to come together and get the right work done.
Well, speaking
So
about things that work, we're going to go around the corner and we're going to hear from messages from White Stallion Ranch and Basecamp for Veterans. And when we come back, I want to talk about how things work between the commercial interests of dude ranching and the Altar Valley Conservation Alliance, how they get along and their different needs of each of them.
sure, sounds good.
Okay? Be right back.
They never told us that the hardest part of the mission wasn't the field. It was the silence that followed when we returned home. Basecamp for Veterans knew transition wasn't a solo march. Basecamp knew it would take a community that spoke the language of service, along with relearning how to connect. Basecamp provides the grit, the gear, the direction, and the brotherhood to help warriors find their new North Star. But they can't hold the line alone. Your financial support provides more than just resources. Your support provides a way back. We're asking you to cowboy up for those who gave everything. Visit bcampinc.com today. Stand with veterans so no veteran has to stand alone. That's bcampinc.com.
The True family welcomes you to the ranch that has been their home for over 55 years. Reconnect with nature, family, friends, and serenity. Ride through the unspoiled desert, rugged mountains, and cactus that have brought Hollywood filmmakers to the ranch for over 70 years. Recognized nationally for excellence in service and value. Our ranch adventure vacations offer lodging, amenities, daily meals, and a vast array of ranch activities. Come visit White Stallion Ranch today for the adventure of your lifetime.
And we're back in our conversation with Mary Miller from the Elkhorn Ranch. This has been a really interesting conversation. I just get to sit back here and I listen to things from the Clinton era and Bruce Babbitt, and this has really been a lot of fun. What I would like to get back to, though, Mary, is you do so much with the Altar Valley Conservation Alliance and with Elkhorn Ranch, and I think one has a commercial interest and one has an ecological conservation interest. How do the two get along, and how do you make everybody get along in that world?
That's a big question. I guess I would say that Elkhorn is we are a guest ranch, but we are also a working ranch. We do not have cattle anymore, but we do have a very large horse herd. So all of the issues that production beef ranchers face, we're dealing with those as well. We have a grazing program. We care about the sustainability of our grasslands, certainly wildlife, soil, water. All of our water is from wells here on the ranch. So all of these issues that are part of what make the conservation of the valley matter are also our business interests and needs. So while we're in the guest business, we also have a tremendous amount of affinity with our cattle ranching neighbors. So I hope that answers part of the question. How does it all fit together? I suspect at times my family would say I've spent too much time on Altar Valley and not enough time on Elkhorn, but it's just been a real juggle. Lately, it's been positive to let some of these younger generations really take over the alliance. And I am a heck of a lot more focused on Elkhorn. I mean, I've always been focused here, but we are in the phase of our next generation coming into management. So we've been really, really trying to be very focused here and work on our succession here at the Elkhorn. And let's face it, it's been some really tough times in business lately. So seems like my husband Charlie always says that every generation has had its different challenges. And I don't know, I think our generation has had a lot of different challenges, all different than previous, but between drought and COVID and 9/11 and lots of competition and rising costs, it's kind of a jungle out there. So you got to keep your wits about you.
Well, it's you use the word, you've got a grazing program, um, and you use the word program, I think, with a great deal of intention. I mean, you've got specific results that you want to get out of that. And I'm sitting with a guy that does the same thing. And you
Mhm.
both have got a world of experience in doing what you do and understanding the iterations, the ups and the downs, and the different results that you get when you do different things. And see, to me, this what's so remarkable to watch. Um, and I said, especially with your dual role, you're working with conservation, which is the other that you're talking about. You're living off of well water. Well, it's kind of important to conserve that because just about every third story on the news is water in Arizona.
Indeed, indeed, it keeps us hopping.
I'm sure it does.
How
I
how
also,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, you go, Russell.
Well, I was just going to ask you. I mean, the Elkhorn's up in the mountains there, and so are your wells in the aquifer, or are you sort of more pocket wells, or how does that work? And is water? Because I'm familiar through Rancho del Oso with the aquifer, and there's a couple of layers, and it's when they were doing the wall, it had an impact on the base aquifer, and so did that have an impact on you?
I don't think it did. I think we're far enough north that it's We have most of our wells are a couple 100 feet deep. They're fairly shallow.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's shallow. Yeah.
So we have one a little further down into the valley that's maybe more like 500 feet. So I think they're pretty localized to this watershed. So
Yeah, it must be at 200 feet. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's nice. Well, of course, your husband, Charlie, he's one of the guys. I know a lot of dude ranchers. You know a lot. We've been involved a long time, and you've run the Arizona Association many years, and I was very involved with the DRA, and it just gave me an opportunity to meet so many interesting and really storied ranchers. But some of them, and this is from me, never an insult. They're like my parents. They were dudes who ran dude ranches. Our parents had no preconceived idea, just something they stumbled on and rolled the dice for whatever reason. But your husband Charlie and your father-in-law Bob, they were the real deal. They took rides and broke horses and did the shoeing and that's not better or worse. It's just, there's Brent Kilmer up in Wyoming is one of those folks. And that, I think that comes, you're not offended if we call Elkhorn a very traditional dude ranch. That's
what I call us. I think we are more in line with some of those early places. A swimming pool was installed in the 60s, and they had to wait till Charlie's grandmother, Grace, was out of town for the summer because she was appalled at the idea of putting in a swimming pool because it would make it a resort instead of a dude ranch. But in Arizona, having a swimming pool is a pretty darn good idea. But no, I think we are definitely one of the more traditional ranches, and we really stick to the horseback riding as our big organized activity. We do have a hiking guide now, which has been a really nice small expansion, but we sort of stick to that. We don't try to have as many other activities. We've been fortunate. We may need to change someday, but so far that's been our big focus. And I think what I love about the ranches in Arizona is that we are all so different. Depending on how you count them, there's a dozen or so, and we're all so different, and yet we all offer wonderful packages that people love, and different people find their different niche. And I think that that's a part of what makes Arizona really special in this industry. Not to mention just our rich history with it. But I know you believe in that a lot too, Russell.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, of course, one of my statements is Arizona, we have to work harder for less because, we're not, even though we were certainly one of the big four states in dude ranching history, 338 dude ranches in Arizona minimum at one time or another, 127 in the Tucson area. We were the dude ranch capital of the world, this area. But, you're right. We're down to what? 12, 14, depending on how they're defined. And so we're not first thought. In summer, we're not summer oriented. Some of us are open in the summer, but we're a winter resort comparison. We're winter dude ranches in our heart, and so people think Colorado, Wyoming, Montana before they do us, and we have this sort of roller coaster of a season where kids are in and out of school. A little less the case now with homeschooling and year-round stuff, but yes. How many guests do you take? What do you max out at?
30-ish. No more than 35.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate. We have a lot of people who like to come year after year, and I think they just feel very at home here and are very just feel good here. It's very relaxing but adventurous. A lot of friendships evolve here. I really think that's what makes this industry tick, is the amazing friendships that develop. I think, you don't think of going on vacation as a time to make new friends, but that's what happens when you go to a dude ranch. And I think that's what makes people love coming back. And certainly it's what makes it really fun for us. I've just the people you meet from all walks of life and all sorts of places. It's a pretty fun way to make a living. Hard work as well, but a pretty fun way to make a living.
Well, Mary, I know walking around White Stallion, if I'm with Russell, it's almost like I'm with Elvis Presley, because everybody knows him and everybody wants to spend time with him. And it's kind of remarkable to me. A question I have is, you are transitioning to your next generation. How is that
Mhm.
going? And are you able to impart some of your wisdom to the generation behind you that's going to be running Elkhorn Ranch, we hope, and get across to them what dude ranching is and what it is to you and Charlie?
Well, I think it's going well. We're very lucky that we have two daughters, and they're both working at the ranch. And one of them got married last summer, so we essentially have three very capable young adults here coming behind us. It's they're kind of divided. One of my daughter Clara is at the barn, and Alicia, my other daughter, is kind of working in the areas I've worked in, more the ranch operations. And then my son-in-law Alvaro does kind of the maintenance and grounds and things like that. And you certainly try to impart to them how to do things and where things are. Um, and at the same time, they kind of have to figure it out. We are lucky that we can be here and have a nice overlap with them. I imagine there'll be some point when they'll just want to kick us out because we're probably getting in the way. But hopefully we find kind of a balance with that. But we are incredibly fortunate that they're here.
And,
Yeah, that's the fourth generation.
And you're pleased with how
Yep.
it's going.
Oh yeah, no, we're very lucky. Yep, we're working away at it. So I don't think they quite want us to leave, but who knows? We haven't done any vacations in the wintertime yet. That'd be a bit of a reach, but hopefully someday soon.
That'll be the test.
Indeed.
It's interesting. I won't say who. A good friend of mine has a ranch, not in Arizona, and I've known him and his wife and the kids for a long time. And the ranch is for sale. And I called him and asked him. I was really surprised because his kids work there and they're important and they're bright and they get dude ranching. And I thought they were the obvious and clear next step. And as my friends are, their words, aging out, their kids go, we don't want to work without you guys here, which my translation was, that looks too hard. And so it's interesting because most of the time it's the opposite. I heard Kelly Kelsey say in the great Call of the West PBS documentary just done, and she said, because her father-in-law was a giant figure, Howard Kelsey, and they finally had to tell him, Howard, you can't come to the ranch anymore unless we invite you. You need to, and I guess he was just such a magnetic, charismatic person that they felt that it was disruptive, and that's, I think, more often. I think, most of us, if we get a generation to come up behind us, we expect eventually to get kicked out. So
yeah. Well, I think that's kind of a good thing. I mean, when you're raising kids, you want to kick them out and have them go do what they do, and kind of the tables turn. So, I think Charlie's parents were, and when Charlie came in, um, they were very thoughtful and tried to be very deliberate about planning for the future. And you can't plan for everything, but I think if you're intentional and thoughtful, it can go a long way. And we are doing our best to do that. It is a work in progress for sure.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time today, Mary. Do you have anything left that you choose to share with us that we haven't talked about?
Oh golly. Well, I guess I'd like to put in a little bit of a plug for the Arizona Dude Ranch Association. And again, I think we all these ranches in Arizona have a lot to offer, and I think we also learn a lot from each other. I know one of the things I love about knowing Russell is that I think being in the city, being a little bigger, they always seem to know about things just a little faster than we do. And over the years, we've had a lot of great conversations, and I think helped each other out a lot. And I think that that's really important, and I value that. So it's been really fun to be on this show today and get to share a little bit of our exchange over the years and just knowing each other.
Excellent. Now, if people want to know more about Elkhorn Ranch, how do they do that? Do you have a website? You on social media? What are you doing?
Yep, we have a website. It is simply Elkhorn Ranch, ELKHORN ranch.com. And you can email us at office@elkhornranch.com or give us a call at 520-822-1040. We also have Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff.
Okay,
but
good.
Website's the best bet. So thank
And
you.
and Mary, I mean, kind of back to what's special about Elkhorn. I mean, do you it's an honest question because I can't remember. Do you have set days for people to come and go? Or can
Most
they
people
come and
come for a week, usually
Yeah.
Sunday to Sunday. It's
Right.
best as a week-long experience, and
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
open from mid-November to the end of April.
Okay, so mid-November, end of April, the sort of the classic Southern Arizona season. And I know that when I've been there, the guests and people I know that are devoted Elkhorn guests, they don't come to ours. I've just run into them because if they're an Elkhorn guest, they're Elkhorn for life. But they have cocktail parties, sort of rotating little gatherings at each other's cabins, and because of all this guest interaction you've talked about, do I have that right?
There's a little bit of that. I think in the old days, there used to be a lot of it. Apparently, they would book things even a year in advance. They're not quite as wild about that now, but no, we do a couple of social events every week, and people gather at meals and enjoy riding together, hiking. We've also started to do quite a few workshops, old time music, bluegrass music, photography, art, archaeology and history of the valley. And the latest one has to do with desert creatures, and in particular herpetology. And those events have also kind of brought people together to enjoy camaraderie of common interests. So it's a really people-oriented place for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, and they can learn about all of those special workshops on your website. They're all there.
Indeed, they're all listed.
Great.
So,
all right,
Mary, thank you so much for taking the time today. I know you're busy.
well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we really appreciate it.
Well, for anybody who wants a immaculately maintained, and the grounds are, you walk anywhere, you're stepping on raking marks, and everything is just the way it's supposed to be at a Southern Arizona traditional dude ranch, and get some great riding that some of it will grab your breath a little, some of it if you choose to do it, and other riding is of course available. So it's just a great traditional Arizona dude ranch.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Russell.
Thank you, Mary.
All right. Take care, you guys. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Every dude rancher out there does it just a little bit differently, and they put their own personal spin on it.
Well, I mean, and Mary, if she is with us, she would agree. We're big believers as a group in the 6 H's of the DRA, Dude Ranchers Association: horses, hats, hospitality, heritage, heart, and honesty. And every single one of us, if we're doing it right, follow those 6 H's. Those are our defining core beliefs. And then whether we have a tennis court, I think Elkhorn actually does. She probably doesn't want to brag about it. They conceded to that swimming pool, and they have a hiking program, but it is still those 6 H's. And whether you're Tanque Verde Ranch with all the stuff they've got going on, or Rancho de los Caballeros here in Arizona, lots of other stuff. But if we're doing it right, we're following those 6 H's.
And it shows. It shows. Thank you for your time today, Russell. And I look forward to our next Cowboy Up podcast. I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. Remember, Cowboy Up in your next adventure, and we will see you next time. This is Steve Clauson for the Cowboy Up Basecamp for Veterans podcast. Thank you for watching.